At 38, I'm Marissa Cole, a surgeon who clawed her way through years of grueling shifts to buy my dream home, a $2,800,000 beachfront villa in Cape Cod. It was my sanctuary, my reward, a place to breathe after pouring everything into my career. But that peace shattered with one phone call. My brother called, his voice dripping with that familiar entitlement. "We're on our way to you," he said. "There'll be 20 of us. Prepare beds, towels, slippers, food. We're staying for 2 weeks. We'll be there in 30 minutes, so hurry up." I stood frozen, gripping my phone, his words echoing like a slap. 20 people invading my home. Without asking, I could already picture the chaos: strangers sprawling across my floors, raiding my fridge, trampling my space. My heart raced, not with panic, but with something sharper. I'd let him walk over me before, his endless borrowing, his broken promises, but not this time. I smiled, a plan sparking in my mind. This wasn't just about my house. It was about taking back control. He thought he could barge in and take over. He was about to learn how wrong he was. This story really made me reflect on the boundaries within family. What about you? Share your thoughts in the comments so we can discuss together. As I hung up the phone, my mind drifted back. Ethan's voice, smug and demanding, wasn't new. It was a pattern, one I'd ignored for too long, hoping family meant loyalty. I was wrong. 5 years ago, Ethan came to me with his big idea, a startup selling artisanal coffee. He needed $50,000 to get it off the ground. I was 33, fresh off a promotion, and wanted to support him. I wrote the check, no questions asked, believing his promises of repayment. The business folded in 6 months. He never paid me back, not a dime, claiming the market crashed. I let it slide, thinking family deserved second chances. Then there was my car. 2 years ago, Ethan borrowed my SUV for a weekend trip. He kept it for 3 months, racking up parking tickets and leaving coffee stains on the seats. When I confronted him, he laughed it off, saying I could afford a new one. I was furious, but stayed quiet. Mom had always preached keeping the peace. She'd passed by then, but her voice lingered, urging me to hold the family together. I tried, even when Ethan took my grandmother's pearl necklace from my dresser, claiming he'd borrowed it for his girlfriend. I never saw it again. He didn't even apologize, just shrugged like it was nothing. The worst was his son, Caleb. At 16, Caleb needed tuition for a private school. Ethan was too busy blowing money on sports betting to care. I paid the $20,000 bill, thinking of Mom, who'd always wanted the best for her grandson. Ethan thanked me with a half-hearted text, then bought himself a new watch. I saw it on his wrist at a family dinner, gleaming, while Caleb's school fees drained my savings. Each time I told myself it was the last favor. But Ethan kept coming back, banking on my success, my stability, my silence. It started when we were kids. Ethan, 2 years older, always had a way of getting what he wanted. He'd charm Mom into extra allowance, leaving me to scrape by. In high school, he'd take credit for my projects, grinning when teachers praised him. I worked hard, studied late, built my career from nothing. Ethan. He coasted, leaning on my achievements like they were his. When I got into med school, he asked for a small loan to cover his rent. I gave it, thinking he'd grow up. He didn't. Over the years, I handed him thousands, 10,000 for a failed DJ gig, 5,000 for a sure-thing investment. Each time he'd promise to pay me back, then vanish until he needed more. I wasn't naive. I saw the pattern, but guilt kept me hooked. Mom's words echoed, "Family looks out for each other." I wanted to honor her, to be the sister she'd raised. Ethan knew that, and used it. He'd drop her name in every ask, knowing it'd tug at me. Mom would have wanted this, he'd say, and I'd cave. But standing in my villa, his voice still ringing from that call, I felt something shift. Every loan, every stolen item, every broken promise piled up. This wasn't about family. It was about Ethan seeing my success as his personal ATM. I'd spent years building this life, this home, only for him to assume he could walk in and take it. The memories burned. I thought of the late nights studying the 12-hour surgeries, the sacrifices to afford this villa. Ethan never saw that. To him, my hard work was just a resource to tap. I remembered the last time I saw him 6 months ago at a cousin's wedding. He'd bragged about his new boat bought with money I later learned came from selling my old laptop, another borrowed item. I'd let it go, not wanting to ruin the day. But now, with 20 people about to invade my home, I was done. Ethan thought he could keep taking. He was wrong. 30 minutes later, the driveway roared with engines. I stepped to the window, my stomach twisting as 3 cars and a van pulled up, spilling out a crowd of 20 strangers. Ethan led the pack, striding toward my front door like he owned the place. Before I could even open it, they pushed inside, their laughter loud and careless, carrying bags of chips, 6-packs of beer, and pizza boxes. The hardwood floor, polished just yesterday, was instantly littered with crumbs and muddy footprints. Someone dropped an empty can on my rug, the aluminum clinking as it rolled. I stood frozen, watching my sanctuary turn into a frat house. Ethan didn't even glance at me as he tossed his duffel bag onto my couch. "Nice place, Marissa," he said, his tone casual, like he was complimenting a hotel. His friends spread out, opening my fridge, grabbing bottles, and cranking music from a portable speaker. The bass thumped through my walls, drowning out the sound of the waves I'd come here to hear. One guy sprawled on my armchair, propping his boots on the coffee table. Another opened a bag of nachos, scattering orange dust on my white cushions. I clenched my fists, the air in my lungs feeling heavy. This was my home, my escape, and they were tearing it apart without a second thought. I followed Ethan as he headed upstairs, his sneakers tracking sand on my staircase. "Where's the best room?" he asked, not waiting for an answer. He pushed open the door to my bedroom, the one with the floor-to-ceiling windows facing the ocean. "This'll do," he said, tossing his jacket on my bed. "Me and a few guys are taking this one. You've got other rooms, right?" His smirk made my blood boil. I'd spent months designing that space, every pillow, every frame chosen to make it mine. Now he was claiming it like it was his right. "Ethan, you can't just take my room," I said, my voice sharp but steady. He turned, raising an eyebrow as if I'd said something absurd. "Relax, Marissa. It's just 2 weeks. You're not using it all the time, are you?" His friends lounging in the hallway chuckled, egging him on. One of them, a woman with a beer in hand, called out, "Yeah, lighten up. It's a party." I stared at Ethan, waiting for him to correct her, to acknowledge this was my home. He didn't. Instead, he grabbed a pillow from my bed and tossed it to one of his buddies. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, ignoring me completely. The violation hit me like a wave. This wasn't just about a room or a mess. It was my space, my life being trampled by people who didn't care. I thought of the years I'd spent building this, long surgeries, skipped vacations, every dollar saved for this villa. Ethan knew that. He'd seen me grind, yet here he was, turning my home into his personal playground. I watched a guy spill beer on my kitchen counter, not even bothering to wipe it up. Another left a pizza box open on the dining table, grease staining the wood. The noise grew louder, bottles, clinking, voices shouting over the music. My chest tightened as I realized how little they respected what I'd built. I wanted to scream, to shove them all out the door, but I held back. Ethan's dismissal stung worse than the mess. He acted like my home was a free Airbnb, like my boundaries didn't exist. I stood in the doorway of my bedroom, watching him unpack his bag, tossing clothes onto my chair. His friends milled around, some heading to the deck, others raiding my pantry. The smell of cheap beer mixed with the salty air, and I felt my sanctuary slipping away. I wasn't just angry, I was suffocating. This was my line in the sand, and Ethan had crossed it without a second thought. I followed Ethan into my bedroom. His jacket was still slung across my bed, his sneakers scuffing the hardwood as he rummaged through my dresser for extra pillows. The audacity of it, walking into my space, treating it like his own, lit a fire in my chest. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This wasn't just about a room. It was about my home, my boundaries, and I wasn't letting him steamroll me again. Ethan, I said, my voice firm, you and your friends need to leave. Now. He stopped, turning to face me with a smirk that made my skin crawl. Leave, Marissa, come on, don't be dramatic. He said, his tone dripping with mockery. He leaned against my dresser, crossing his arms like he was humoring a child. This place is huge. There's room for everyone. Why make a big deal out of it? His words were sharp-cutting, meant to make me feel small. I stood my ground, staring him down. This is my house, Ethan. You didn't ask. You don't get to decide who stays. His laugh was loud, almost theatrical, echoing through the room. Oh, Marissa, lighten up, he said, rolling his eyes. We're family, Marissa. Family shares, right? You've got all this space and you're hoarding it like some miser. He gestured around as if my home was a public park. The word family hit me like a jab, twisting my resolve. He knew exactly what he was doing, pulling that card to make me second-guess myself. I remembered Mom's voice, her lessons about unity, but this wasn't unity. It was invasion. Downstairs, his friends caught wind of the tension. A guy in a baseball cap leaned over the staircase railing, grinning. Yo, Ethan, she's serious, he called, chuckling like I was the punchline. A woman with a half-empty beer bottle joined in, shouting, Let's all just chill. Okay, it's a vacation. The group erupted in laughter, their voices blending with the thumping music. I felt their eyes on me, judging, dismissing. It was like standing in a spotlight, every word I said mocked. Ethan didn't correct them. Instead, he shrugged, turning back to me with a smug look. See, everyone's cool with it. You're the one making it weird. I clenched my jaw, my hands trembling. The room felt smaller, the air thicker as their laughter pressed against me. I wanted to scream, to drag them all out myself, but I knew I couldn't. Not yet. Ethan, I'm not joking. I said, my voice low but steady. You're not staying here. None of you are. He raised an eyebrow, unfazed, and tossed another pillow onto the bed. You're gonna kick out your own brother, really, Marissa? After everything we've been through, his tone softened, but it was fake, a ploy I'd fallen for too many times. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Mom would have wanted us to stick together. You know that. That was the knife he twisted. Mom. He always brought her up when he wanted something. I saw her face in my mind, her warm smile, her endless patience. But I also saw the truth. She'd never have let him walk over me like this. My resolve hardened, but the weight of his words, the jeering from his friends, made me feel like I was drowning. I was 1 against 20, their voices loud, their presence overwhelming. For a moment I felt powerless, like every time I'd let him take and take without consequence. But something snapped inside me. I wasn't that sister anymore, the one who caved to keep the peace. I thought of the villa, every dollar I'd earned, every sacrifice to make it mine. Ethan didn't get to rewrite that story. This isn't about family, I said, my voice cutting through the noise. This is about respect, and you have none. His smirk faltered just for a second, but he recovered quickly, waving me off. You'll get over it, he said, turning back to his bag. His friends cheered, their support like a wall between us. I stood there, heart pounding, knowing I couldn't let this slide. I wouldn't. I slipped into my study and called Bridget. The door clicked shut behind me, muffling the thumping music and laughter from downstairs. My hands shook as I dialed the weight of Ethan's words. We're family. Marissa still clawing at me. Bridget picked up on the second ring, her voice warm and steady. Marissa, what's wrong? You sound off. I exhaled, the knot in my chest loosening just hearing her. Bridget Cox had been my rock since med school, the one person who saw through Ethan's charm from day one. I spilled everything: his unannounced arrival, the 20 strangers turning my villa into a party zone, his smug claim on my bedroom, and the way he twisted family to shut me down. He said what Bridget's tone sharpened, cutting through my haze. Marissa, this isn't okay. That's your home, not his personal resort. You've worked too hard for this. Her words were like a lifeline pulling me back from the edge of doubt. I paced the study, glancing at the framed photo of me and Bridget at my graduation, a reminder of the years I'd fought for this life. I told him to leave. I said, my voice low, but he laughed it off. His friends backed him up, acting like I'm the bad guy. Bridget didn't hesitate. You're not the bad guy. He's crossing a line and you need to push back hard. She didn't stop there. Listen, you're in a gated community, right? Call the neighborhood security team. They handle stuff like this all the time in places like Cape Cod. And get your lawyer on the phone, pull up your property deed. Ethan's got no claim to your house and you need to make that clear. Her advice was practical, no nonsense, exactly what I needed. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, my mind racing with possibilities. Security and a lawyer, I repeated the words, grounding me. Yeah, that could work. Bridget's voice softened but stayed firm. You've got this, Marissa. Don't let him bully you into giving up your space. It's yours. As we spoke, a memory surfaced clear as day. I was 12, sitting at the kitchen table with Mom June Cole while she chopped vegetables for dinner. Ethan had just borrowed my bike without asking, leaving it scratched in the driveway. I was furious, but when I complained, Mom looked at me, her eyes calm but serious. Marissa, your things are yours. People can only take what you let them. Respect starts with you. Her words had stuck even after all these years. June wasn't here anymore, but that lesson was etched deep, a quiet strength I'd forgotten until now. Ethan wasn't just taking my room. He was disrespecting everything I'd built, everything Mom had taught me to value. Bridget's voice snapped me back. You still there? She asked. I nodded again, clutching the phone. Yeah, I'm here. I remembered something Mom said about respect. She'd hate this Ethan acting like my home's his playground. Bridget sighed. Exactly. June would have called him out in a heartbeat. You need to do the same. You're not alone in this. Okay, I'm here, and you've got the tools to fix it. Her confidence was contagious, sparking something fierce in me. I wasn't powerless. I had options, security, a lawyer, my own resolve. I hung up, my heart still pounding but steadier now. I opened my laptop, pulling up the contact for the neighborhood security team. My fingers hovered over the keys, hesitating for just a moment. Ethan's face flashed in my mind, his smirk, his casual dismissal, but so did Mom's voice, Bridget's encouragement. This was my home, my sanctuary, paid for with years of sweat and sacrifice. I wasn't letting Ethan take that from me, not this time. I dialed the security team's number, my voice calm as I introduced myself. Hi, this is Marissa Cole. I need assistance at my property. As I spoke, I felt the fire in me grow. I was done being pushed around. With Bridget's words in my head, I picked up the phone. My fingers moved fast, dialing the neighborhood security team's number. This is Marissa Cole. I said, my voice steady despite the chaos downstairs. I have uninvited guests at my property who refuse to leave. The operator was calm, professional, promising a team would arrive within 10 minutes. Next, I called my lawyer, Karen, who'd handled the villa's closing. Karen, I need you to confirm my property deed, I told her, explaining Ethan's invasion. She promised to email the documents within the hour, her tone sharp with indignation on my behalf. I opened my laptop, digging through files to find the deed myself, ensuring every detail was ready. This wasn't just a phone call. It was me drawing a line. I headed downstairs, the music louder now, a pulsing beat that rattled the windows. Ethan was in the kitchen, popping open another beer, his friends sprawled across my living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. Ethan, I said, standing in the doorway, I'm giving you one last chance. Take your friends and leave, or I'm escalating this. He didn't even look up, just took a swig from his bottle. Escalating, he said, his voice thick with sarcasm. What you gonna call the cops over a family visit? His friends snickered, one tossing a chip into his mouth, crumbs falling onto my rug. Their dismissal stung, but I held my ground. my resolve unshaken. The party didn't stop. Someone turned the music up, the bass vibrating through the floor. A woman danced on my coffee table, her drink sloshing onto the glass. Another guy rummaged through my pantry, pulling out snacks I'd bought for myself. The air was thick with the smell of beer and pizza, my sanctuary now a circus. I felt the pressure building, my heart racing as their laughter mocked my demand. Ethan leaned back against the counter, smirking. "You're wasting your time, Marissa," he said, waving a hand. "We're not going anywhere. Just enjoy the vibe." His casual arrogance was a slap, pushing me to act. I pulled out my phone, stepping back to capture the scene. I snapped photos of the mess, empty cans scattered on the counter, greasy pizza boxes stacked on the table, muddy footprints streaking the floor. I zoomed in on the woman on the coffee table, her heels scuffing the surface, and the guy raiding my pantry, bags of chips torn open. I even got a shot of Ethan, beer in hand, smirking like he owned the place. These weren't just pictures, they were evidence, proof of what he'd done to my home. I sent them to Karen, my fingers steady as I typed, "For the record, this is what I'm dealing with." She replied instantly, "Save those. They'll help if this goes legal." The noise grew louder, a new group of Ethan's friends shouting over a card game in the dining room. I stood in the corner watching them trample my space, my chest tight with frustration. Every laugh, every clink of a bottle felt like a challenge to my authority. I thought of Bridget's advice, security lawyer proof, and felt a surge of clarity. Ethan thought he could ignore me, but I wasn't backing down. I checked my email. Karen's message had arrived, the deed attached confirming this villa was mine, not his. I clutched my phone, the photos and documents a shield against his entitlement. Time was ticking, security would be here soon, and I was ready to end this. 10 minutes later, the security team arrived. 2 black SUVs pulled into the driveway, and 3 uniformed officers stepped out, led by Officer Craig Spencer. His broad frame filled the doorway as he knocked, his voice calm but commanding. "Ms. Cole, we're here about your call." I opened the door, my heart steady despite the chaos inside. The music still blared, and Ethan's friends lounged across my furniture, oblivious to the shift. I handed Officer Spencer my property deed, the pages crisp in my hand. "These people are trespassing," I said, pointing to the crowd. "I've asked them to leave, and they refused." Officer Spencer scanned the deed, nodding. "All right, folks," he called out, his voice cutting through the noise. "This is private property. You need to pack up and leave now." The music stopped abruptly, and a hush fell over the room. Ethan pushed through his friends, his face red with anger. "You're kidding me, right?" he snapped, glaring at me. "Marissa, you called security. On your own brother." His voice dripped with betrayal, but I saw through it, another attempt to twist the narrative. "You didn't give me a choice." "Ethan," I said, my tone even, "this is my home." His friends stirred, some muttering, others grabbing their bags. But not all complied. A guy in a hoodie, swaying from too many drinks, stumbled and spilled red wine across my cream-colored rug, the stain spreading like blood. Another, trying to steady him, knocked a glass figurine off my coffee table, scratching the surface with a sharp screech. I winced but stayed focused, snapping a quick photo of the damage with my phone. Ethan saw me and scoffed. "Really documenting like some paranoid landlord? You're pathetic, Marissa." His words stung, but I kept my composure, nodding to Officer Spencer. "That's more evidence," I said quietly. Ethan wasn't done. He pulled out his phone, typing furiously. "Let's see how your precious reputation holds up," he sneered, hitting send. My phone buzzed seconds later with a notification from a social media platform. His post popped up, a photo of my villa with the caption, "My sister's so selfish she's kicking out family to keep her fancy house to herself." Ungrateful. The words hit hard, painting me as the villain to his followers. I felt a surge of anger, but I pushed it down. This wasn't about his online tantrum, it was about my home. "Officer Spencer," I said, showing him the post, "he's slandering me now." The officer frowned, jotting notes. "We'll address that later." Let's focus on clearing the property. The security team moved in, directing Ethan's friends to gather their things. Some complied, slinging backpacks over their shoulders, but others lingered, egged on by Ethan's defiance. "This is ridiculous," he shouted, pacing the living room. "Marissa, you're throwing away family for what, a house?" His voice cracked, but I saw the performance. He was playing the victim just like always. I stood by Officer Spencer, my arms crossed. "It's not just a house, Ethan. It's mine, and you don't respect that." My voice was calm, unshaken, even as his friends shot me dirty looks. The officers began escorting people out, checking IDs to ensure no one stayed behind. A woman protested, claiming she'd just spilled a little wine, but Officer Spencer was firm. "Ma'am, you're leaving now." I followed them, watching as the group shuffled toward the cars, some muttering curses, others laughing like it was a joke. Ethan was the last to move, grabbing his duffel bag with a scowl. "You'll regret this, Marissa," he said, his eyes cold. I didn't flinch. "No, Ethan. You will." The officers guided him out, and the door shut behind them, the silence deafening. My home was mine again, but the fight wasn't over. As the last car pulled out of the driveway, silence returned. The villa felt eerily still, the absence of music and laughter almost deafening. I stood in the doorway, watching the dust settle, my heart heavy but resolute. My home was mine again, but the cost was clear. I stepped inside, the weight of the day settling over me, and began assessing the damage. The cream-colored rug in the living room bore a deep red wine stain, its edges frayed from careless steps. The glass coffee table, once pristine, now had a long, jagged scratch across its surface, glinting in the afternoon light. I ran my fingers over the mark, my stomach twisting at the sight. Every scuff, every stain was a reminder of Ethan's disregard. I grabbed a bucket and cleaning supplies, starting with the rug. The wine wouldn't budge, no matter how hard I scrubbed the fabric, soaking up my frustration. I moved to the table, wiping down the smudges, but the scratch remained a permanent scar. The kitchen was worse. Empty cans littered the counter, and greasy fingerprints smudged the cabinets. I worked in silence, each swipe of the cloth grounding me, reclaiming my space. This wasn't just cleaning, it was erasing the invasion piece by piece. But as I swept the floor, I knew some things couldn't be undone. Ethan had crossed a line I couldn't forgive. I opened my phone and blocked his number. The decision was heavy, like cutting a thread I'd held onto for years. Family was supposed to mean something, but Ethan had twisted that bond into a weapon. I thought of our childhood, the times I'd let him take because I believed in togetherness. No more. I blocked him on social media too, severing the last tie. The choice hurt, but it was necessary. I'd spent years building this life, my villa, my career, my peace, and I wasn't letting guilt pull me back. Ethan wasn't my responsibility anymore. Later, I checked his social media posts, the one calling me selfish. It had backfired. Comments flooded in, strangers and mutual acquaintances alike calling him out. "You showed up uninvited with 20 people. That's not family, that's entitlement," one wrote. Another said, "She worked for that house. Respect it." His followers, the same ones who'd cheered him on, now questioned his story. A few even messaged me, offering support, appalled at his behavior. Ethan's attempt to shame me had turned on him, his credibility crumbling under the weight of his own actions. I didn't feel vindicated, just tired. His loss wasn't my victory. It was just the end. As I sat on my deck watching the waves crash against the shore, I reflected on what this ordeal taught me. Setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. Family doesn't get a free pass to disrespect you, no matter how close the blood. I'd spent too long bending to keep the peace, but peace at the cost of my dignity wasn't worth it. This villa, this life was mine, because I earned it, and no one, not even Ethan, could take that away. I thought of Mom's lessons, her voice in my head about respect, and realized I'd honored her by standing firm. Boundaries weren't walls, they were doors I chose to open or close. I want to thank you all for listening to my story. It's not easy to share something so personal, but I hope it resonates with you. Have you ever had to set a hard boundary with someone you love? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. And if this moved, you please hit that subscribe button. Your support means the world, and I'll keep sharing real stories like this one. Let's keep the conversation going.